That's why when it came to Ben Simmons, I pointed to people who prepped him for the interview as opposed to himself, because he is young, inexperienced, and I think that you got to dot your I's and cross your T's. Why do I feel that way? Because some things are bigger than you, and some things ain't about you. Everything that you just said, everything that you just articulated made a lot of sense for Ben Simmons. But there are people out there that will look at Jay Williams and say, Jay, what if he was lying? What if he used this as an excuse just to make sure he didn't have to play for the Philadelphia 76ers anymore while ensuring that he's still able to get his money? When they ask those questions, now, let me finish.
Okay.
Because, again, we're trying to be delicate. We're trying to display grace in acknowledging that he says that's an issue. That's a very, very big deal. But you have people out there who have suffered. I believe it was one guy, I forgot his name, he was on radio in New York, and he was very, very honest, hosting radio, I forgot where it was, in New York City, and he was very, very honest and forthcoming about his bouts with depression and mental health issues. And he took issue with Ben Simmons, saying that's what he was going through, and highlighted point by point some of the things that he would challenge. What I'm saying is, as somebody, whether you know how I was when my mother died, or you and others, and the kind of things that we've gone through emotionally, at the end of the day, when you publicize what your bout is and use that as justification for doing what some people would term as unprofessional, then all of a sudden you've taken your business and you've made it other people's business, because in their eyes, you're comparing your plight to what they're doing. And as a result, now they're going to dissect the legitimacy of your claims. And if they discover in their mind that it's illegitimate, then not only are they upset at you because of what you may have deceived them about, what they're saying is you have minimized and diluted the importance and the significance of a mental health issue. And so when people look at Ben Simmons right now, that's what they're doing. They're saying to themselves, this whole mental health issue that everybody that has been percolating throughout our society for quite some time over the last few years, what you have done is you have minimized that, and they're going to have a problem with you because they're going to think you're making their lives harder, because when they go to work and they try to sit up there and say they have this issue and it's real, somebody's going to look at a situation like that to minimize what they're saying that their problem is. Those are the kind of things that you have to pay attention to. You're talking about grace, and my response to that would be, fair enough. Grace to whom?
So let's talk about the context of the matter, because I believe that.
Go ahead, and Doug, you chime in after.
I'm sorry, yeah.
No, I think, Steve, you have to trust Ben Simmons
Yes.
on the mental health issues.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not sure if I do. I don't know if Steve does.
I'm not sure.
It's too coincidental to me. I mean, he had a bad postseason. Doc Rivers said some things, Embiid said some things, and all of a sudden he wants out of Philadelphia, wants to make sure he gets his money. What's the best way to do it? Have the agent figure out something with mental health issues. Shows up in Brooklyn, he's going to be ready to play in 2 weeks. So that's a little weird.
Okay, let me say one thing in defense of Ben Simmons. He did say he was having these mental health issues prior to the postseason and that the team was aware. And he did discuss the skepticism about his mental health, and he said, folks should be happy that I'm smiling because I was dealing with some very dark days. So just to give his side, he said this started way before the postseason.
Before Jay chimes in, it's very, very important to say, you're absolutely right about that. That's exactly what Ben Simmons says. And my response when Molly said that, then somebody's lying. Because the Sixers swear up and down that they never heard anything about mental health until the fall.
That's fine.
They're saying, his camp is saying,
my job
they told
is
him that
to share both sides.
the minute the playoffs were over.
I understand.
So somebody's lying.
Yep.
That's somebody's lying.
Somebody's lying.
No, I'm saying,
maybe this wasn't articulated.
No. What I'm saying is,
everybody has different ways how they do it.
If Ben Simmons' camp says, we said this to the Sixers the second the playoffs were over, and the Sixers are saying, we never heard a word until the fall,
lying.
Somebody's lying.
Yeah.
That's all I said.
I do want to go back to another point. I think, Mad Dog, there are different ways to qualify what mental health is, right? So I think there's some things that are extreme. I think there's some things that may be less extreme to other people that are to other people, right? I think one of the things as it relates to Ben is that, look, if you had a job where you're making millions of dollars and you hated what you did every single day, a lot of Americans out there that hate what they do.
Or who they work for.
Or who they work for, but they have to do it to make ends meet. If they were getting paid that certain amount of money and they felt like, hey, I actually can exercise my right to remove myself away from a situation that I think, even though it may not feel that way to you, but to me, I'm in it every damn day. I work with these people every day.
And it's a
I have to see them every day.
Yeah.
I have to deal with their BS every day. Them lying to me. Them looking at me. How you doing? You don't really care about how I'm doing. But I can remove myself away from that situation. I think a lot of people would.
Hold on.
I think a lot of people
Doggy,
would.
I got him. Jay Williams. I completely appreciate what you're saying, more than you would ever know. Because the last person on earth that gets to say that is you. And I'm going to tell you why. Sitting in that seat months ago, Doggy, you might have missed this episode. I know you didn't, Molly. What did Jay Williams say? Kyrie Irving. He was honest. He was forthcoming. He stated exactly what he felt and why. Give him credit, Stephen A. He's straight up front of what have you. What people accusing Ben Simmons of. And I'm not accusing him that. Doggy's not accusing him that. But what people are accusing Ben Simmons of is the fact that he may not have been honest and forthcoming about what's really bothering him. And he just went the broad issue of mental health issues when, in fact, you had a problem with the Sixers organization. Because remember, if he says, I don't want to play for the Sixers, he can't get his money. But if you say mental health, that's a bigger issue, and they can't take his money. So you got a situation where people will look at him with a raised eyebrow with some level of cynicism. Whereas with Kyrie, you may like it, you may hate it, you may not care. But he was honest. But he was but he was honest. I'm only pointing to you because you said, wait a minute, Kyrie was open and honest. Kyrie was open and honest. That's what you said. Now Ben Simmons, a lot of millions of people are like, no. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.